Most people think that it's marketing. So they're like, let me get more leads, or let me get more visibility, or let me start running ads. But that's not the problem. The problem is that your message is going to speak to the wrong people. No matter what strategy you use, you're just amplifying a broken message.
The work never stops, people. That's what I'm trying to.
I was in absolute overwhelm in that moment at the
Yeah.
park, like my kid in the swing, and then angle of mastery. Like that phrase came in, and I was like, oh my God, that is it.
What is going on, L&M family? If you can't tell, I got a new background. No, I didn't buy a new house. I'm at an Airbnb. And adding to the excitement of being here today, we're going to spend some time, Miss Fabi Paolini. I connected with her on LinkedIn, and she's got a spectacular message, or not just a message, a service that she provides in helping people like amplify their brand. So she's a brand strategist. She helps experts, meaning like real experts, not flapping talking heads like me. She helps them attract power buyers with the angle of mastery, which I think super, super interesting. We're going to dig into that. She's been doing it for 9 years. She's helped hundreds of clients enroll high quality leads and clients. And if you're in business at all, you know that leads are important and clients are important. And the fact that these are high quality is phenomenal because that translates into business success. And if this is your first time, this is the Learnings and Missteps podcast, where you get to see how real people just like you are sharing their gifts and talents to leave this world better than they found it. I'm Jesse, your selfish servant, and now you're going to get to know Miss Fabi. Miss Fabi, how are you?
I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you. And you have this amazing, amazing energy and just this life in you. So I'm definitely excited to talk and share some of my story and just have an awesome conversation. So
Oh my God, I love it because I've been able to see several of your clips on, like I said, LinkedIn is primarily the place I live. I'm like there all the time. And I just learned today that you hit 70,000 views on your YouTube channel.
yes. Yeah. So I'm kind of getting started, not sort of started on my YouTube channel since the beginning of last year. I have a podcast where I share just weekly content and videos on there on messaging, marketing, all sorts of things. And so I just got this email this morning or yesterday morning with like a little, you reached 70,000 views and then 4,000 subscribers. It's small, but also I feel like it's massive. So
Oh my God. Okay, so let's stick there. I mean, you said it's small, and you're probably like in comparison to other folks that have like massive, massive views and followings, but it is massive
it
for
is.
you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't start off like that.
Mm-mm.
What was that like for you, being a brand strategist and being on the interwebs, on all the socials, and the time horizon between starting and actually hitting these big milestones? How did you manage that?
Well, the truth, I'll tell you the truth, Jesse. For me, I don't care. I know this is really weird, maybe, but I don't care about how many followers I have or how many likes I get or how many views I get. I genuinely don't. I just focus on delivering value and that's it. And if it's one person, I mean, obviously my business keeps on bringing clients and we keep on growing, which is ultimately what you want. But I just focus on delivering value. And for me, and it's a lot of what I do, and we'll talk about this even more later. But it's like when you have a message that matters to you and you're sharing something that is important, it's like, why would me having 100 views stop me? I just find that to be silly. So yeah.
Oh, I applause because I think rather for the L&M family member out there that's listening and maybe a little, the wind has been taken out of your sails because you don't have a million downloads and all the things. I think what you said is absolutely fundamental in terms of having impact and staying healthy, like mentally healthy, is do it to share a message, do it to serve, do it to contribute. Because if that's what you're doing, mission accomplished. if you're doing it for likes and followers, that's a little different because there's a lot of goofy things you could do to get likes and followers. Now, in terms of the value that you're focused on delivering and providing, and I'm a beneficiary because I pay attention. I pay attention to some of the pointers you put out there in your clips and like, oh, I do that. I do the messaging that's like, the sky is falling down. Let me change that up a little bit. And I've made some tweaks and I've noticed an increase in interaction when I change the message. And so you have this idea of this angle of mastery. What is that?
Yeah. So basically, for me, this is a long story, but I'll try to sum it up as much as I can. So
Come on.
basically, for me, when I started my business, I started creating content like we all are supposed to do, right? And I would bring in clients, but I started to feel like there was something missing in my message. Like I sounded like a lot of different people, and there was a lot of things, or there were a lot of things that I was doing in my own expertise that were coming short when I was trying to explain what I did. I would say things like, I'm going to help you build a brand that attracts, for example, for the first few years of my business. And it's like anybody could say that. Anybody could say, I'm going to help you build a brand that attracts. And what happens often is that so many people fall into using phrases to describe what they do that are like an eye roll, sort of like, okay, thank you. I've
Mm,
heard that a million
mhm.
times. I know that. I see it. And I'm pretty new to LinkedIn. I literally started on LinkedIn in October of last year because I spent
You're blowing up, girl.
years I spent years using Facebook, and that's what I did. And I'll tell you that story later on. But my point is that when I go in through LinkedIn, I feel like 90% of the content sounds the same. And so
Ooh.
for me, this idea of the angle of mastery is about bringing together in one concept or one phrase who you are, what you stand for, and what you're truly selling. Like, what is it that you're selling? You're not selling a program, you're not selling a podcast, you're not selling a service, you're not selling a session or consultant or whatever. You're selling an idea. And so for me,
Mm.
your angle of mastery is that idea that sums it all up, but also feels different to the millions of things. Like, I can guarantee that nobody out there is talking about angle of mastery because I created it. It's like my concept. And so therefore, I become known for that, and I get to stand out because of that, and it also encompasses all these different pieces of who I am. So that's what it's about, basically.
Oh my goodness. Okay. That's pretty. Here's what I love about it. It's pretty damn clear, right? And I hear that like all the time, right? Get clear, get clear, get clear. It's like, but it's not that easy. It takes some work. So in that line of thinking, in terms of gaining the clarity, like, were you clear when you were in sixth grade that you were going to have this trademarked idea and provide the services that you're providing today? Before we get into that, I want to give the L&M family member shout out. This one goes to Miss Trisha Reich. Miss Trisha sent me this message and she says, I really loved spending my Saturday with Jesse and everyone else. I learned about managing myself. If you have the opportunity to participate in one of Jesse's seminars, it's worth the time. So there you go. Trisha said so. We got to hang out in the Do the Damn Thing time management workshop, and there's going to be several of those coming up here in the near future. So keep an eye out for them.
Of course not.
No. So how'd you get here?
So what happened from sixth grade until now?
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
short story. That's funny. No, of course not. Of course not. But it's the evolution of my brand, of figuring out how do I serve my clients better. And
Mm,
honestly, that's where it came up for me, because one thing that I really genuinely care about is making sure that I have a service and a process that is really good, that is actually something that will serve my clients and that will really change their businesses in a way. And so for me, in that process of figuring out, well, how do I give them a true differentiating factor, something that is genuinely going to help them get better results, is when I came up with the angle of mastery for myself. And it was one of those things that is like, happened in the most random way, how that phrase in particular came to me. Now, obviously, since I created this, I'll tell you in a second, but since that phrase came to me, I've developed entire frameworks and methodologies around it. But
So it was like an unlock, like
it was
that happened, and then
literally, I was searching for the phrase, and it was like the most, like the craziest circumstances. My dad had a kidney transplant, my mom was the donor. And while
oh,
both of them were recovering from surgery, I have three kids. My kids, I was alone with my kids. My husband had to, well, from Venezuela originally. My husband had to travel from Venezuela to have his passport renewed. I was in absolute overwhelm in that moment at the
yeah.
park, like my kid in the swing just pushing her, and then angle of mastery. Like that phrase came in, and I was like, oh my God, that is it. And literally started recording voice notes to myself and this whole
Wow.
thing. And then off of that, I've built an entire framework process how to help my clients create their own like kind of angle of mastery phrases and stuff like that. So it was like this whole kind of crazy thing.
Oh my God. That's a beautiful story. And I can only imagine the pressure you were under. And maybe the takeaway there is like you got to be open, seeking, and ready for those moments, that clarity to hit. Would you agree?
100%. And I think that that's when they come in, though. That's when that clarity comes in. I think that the more that I mean, you have to have a framework and a process like learning to ride a bike. You have to learn, okay, I have to put my feet here, I have to move my feet, I have to keep my balance. But suddenly you're like if you're not thinking about the whole thing, but you have the foundations there. And so when you let go is when that comes through as, at the same time. It's like you
Oof.
have the foundation, but then you're also allowing yourself to receive the ideas and the and like that inspiration. I do have a very specific process for that though, but I do think that oftentimes when we let go is when the best ideas can come through.
Yes, yes, and I'm with you. I understand like the process, the mechanics of doing things, and then the kind of magical stuff that I gotta leave space for.
Exactly.
And so the idea, the phrase, the framework of angle of mastery became clear where you're at the park and your family was in the hospital or recovering from
Crazy.
like serious surgery. Your husband's out of the country. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
But what I want to make sure that folks don't miss is it's not like you were just walking in the park and this great idea happened upon you. There was what years of work and grinding and working it all out before that awakening. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And so for folks that are like in that space, 'cause I feel like everybody I know is in that space right now, including me, like in the clunky, bumpy, wonky space of like, I know I can deliver value, but I don't know how to say it clearly yet.
Hmm.
And knowing that you're like a phenomenal brand strategist and your messaging is absolutely clear, what was it like back then? What were the stepping stones that you built upon before you had that moment of clarity?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a kind of a crazy story. Maybe not, but
I
fun
love it.
story. So I like I was sharing before, I'm originally from Venezuela. And in 2015, we came to the US. To be completely honest, I wanted my daughter to be an American. So I came. I always clarify
Okay.
that we came legally though. We had a work
Okay.
visa.
Yeah.
I don't know why I feel like the need to be like I had a work visa. I did not come illegally. It's fine, but just in case anybody ever hears this that is like, let me research. Anyways, and I was coming to give birth and my plan was to leave. That was it. But so this was September 2015, but about like a few months after my daughter was born, my husband and I were like, the situation in Venezuela is getting worse and it's getting trickier. And then we just made a decision to stay. Mind you, it's been almost 10 years. I have not gone back to Venezuela since then. I had an apartment with a baby nursery, all my clothes, everything that was kind of there until last year when we finally rented the apartment, but it was like frozen in time. And so we made the decision to stay. At the time, my husband, he is a singer, but at the time he was working as
Oh,
a singer and he would travel to Venezuela to do shows and concerts there. And basically that's kind of how we were making our income. But I had a background in branding. I've been doing this from since 2007, and I had an MBA, and I had all this kind of knowledge. But my
Mm,
business in Venezuela was all word of mouth, and it was in the local currency. It wasn't in US dollars. So it wasn't something that
okay.
was like easily translated to dollars. So, anyways, I was like, I need to start building my business. As the country, Venezuela, starts to shut down more and more, our income from my husband's show starts to cut off, because if you're not aligned with, basically, I don't want to get into politics, but the dictatorship, you don't get to perform. So essentially,
Sure.
my husband ended up, not going back. And so we were like, okay, we need to figure out a way to build a business here. So I started investing in coaching programs and marketing to figure out what to do. At that time,
Okay.
I was doing mostly like web design, and yet some messaging. I always knew that messaging was important and the core of things. But what I was being taught back then, which is still being taught today, which is crazy to me, is a lot of that pain marketing. Let's agitate people's pain. Let's talk about how bad the problem is. We'll get into this a lot because I can really go into this topic. And like, what type of pressure can you use to get people to buy almost, and like how to do sales and all of these things. And I started implementing, and it started working. But I would also attract a lot of people who were broke, who could not work with me, who couldn't afford it. And
Mm,
I was not going to be the type of salesperson that can enroll that type of person, because that's not who I am. It just never felt right. I just couldn't. It was like, okay, I know that there's people that could enroll you, but if you have to sell your car to work with me, please don't sell your car. Like, please
right.
don't.
You got other things.
I mean, priorities. Yes, of course you need branding and messaging, but you need to eat. So please eat. Anyways, I started growing my business, and little by little, it started moving more and more into messaging. And so one
Okay.
day I think like in 2021, I was like, I feel that this type of message does not resonate with me. This type of pain marketing strategy, everybody's talking about it. It's like the bro marketing way of doing things. It doesn't resonate with me as a buyer. I don't
Mm.
buy when you're talking to me in this condescending, poor you way. I'm here to save you, right? And so
Oh,
if I
yeah.
don't buy into that, why would my audience buy into that? So it was like a very bold decision on my end, but I was like, I'm going to do things completely different. I had zero evidence of it, but I was just convinced that there was a
You
better way
do.
of doing things,
Yeah.
right? And mind you, now I call that strategy being the Ursula, which is you're speaking to the poor, unfortunate souls. It's like,
Poor
there
unfortunate
we go.
souls.
That's it. You got it. There's a new Little Mermaid movie, so now everybody can get that reference. But
Yeah.
that's what I call it. It's like when you're becoming the Ursula, when you're talking to the poor unfortunate souls in your whole messaging. And so I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to speak to the people who are like me. I have a problem, and I'm like, okay, who do I hire? What do I do? How do I fix it?
Yeah.
I'm not like, oh, miserable, falling apart, full of anxiety,
Right.
can't sleep, my life is falling apart. I'm a smart person. I don't
Yeah.
need that message. So I shifted. That was kind of the first piece of my messaging transformation, to really speak against that a lot. And
Yeah.
which meant also that a lot of the coaches and I never said anything by name, but a lot of those coaches were like blocking me off of everywhere, and like
Uh,
all the things really pissed at me. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. You're going to say something.
I've been wondering because you made a dramatic shift
Yeah.
from the norm, from conventional thinking, from the wisdom of those amazing coaches out there. And obviously, I mean, you just started talking about it, right? There was friction.
Yeah.
And you also said that you didn't have any evidence that this was going to work.
Hmm.
And you did it anyway. So if you could like expand, what did that feel like? How did you reconcile? Okay, all these fools, everything out there's telling me this is the way, but right here within
Yeah.
me, this is telling me there's a better way. How did you reconcile and stay resolute
Yeah.
in doing what you saw needed to be done?
It just had to be done. Period. It was,
Okay.
and for me, I am really good at trusting my gut and at following intuition, God, however you want to view it, however you see it. For me, it was really clear. And it's funny because coming back to the LinkedIn, like what happened with LinkedIn, It
Yeah.
was a similar thing. I had been building my business on Facebook since 2015. That was it. I had it clear and dominated. And so last year, I had this moment where I felt like
I'm sure that you know leaving this world better than you found it doesn't happen by accident. And I want to help you spend more time making this world better for yourself and the people you care about. So I want to invite you to the next Do the Damn Thing Time Mastery Workshop because we're going to be having some fun. We're going to be taking all those goals, those ideas, those projects, those dreams, the things that you keep putting off because of the commitment you make to work and the commitment you make to family and the commitment you make to everybody else except for yourself. When you get those out of your head and finally come up with a plan, make the space, find the time for you to make those things real, for you to actually get the ball moving on the things that are going to give more flavor and meaning to your own personal life. Check the show notes for the link. I hope to see you there. And back to the show.
I'm done with Facebook. It was still
Ah,
working for me. I still run ads through Facebook and they work really
sure.
well. But my organic stuff, I can't even explain to you. It was almost like a physical sensation of leave. And so
Ah,
out of
okay.
the blue, same thing with this like Ursula language. It was like stop. From one day to another, I was like, bye Facebook. My gut just told me go to LinkedIn. And that's how I just moved over to LinkedIn after not doing anything on LinkedIn basically ever. But that's the same thing that happened with the messaging. It was like I don't have any evidence of this necessarily, but it was common sense to me in
Yeah.
terms of messaging. If my message says you're powerless and you're full of anxiety and you feel like nothing is going to work, how is it a surprise when I get on a sales call and somebody tells me I don't think that this is going to work because nothing has ever worked and I'm too afraid to invest? Like I literally called you into my program. That was
Right.
exactly why am I surprised when that's what I'm getting back? So we have to be so careful with our content and our message and really discern and be like, wait, does this make sense? And so it was just common sense for me. It was like, I don't have evidence of this, but this is logical. You don't see, I don't know, like Mercedes Benz or I don't know, let's Bentley have
Yeah,
commercials
yeah.
that are like, your car is falling apart. Come buy my car. Poor you. You're so sad. I don't transmissions. I don't know anything about cars. They don't do that. So why is it that I have to do that? It doesn't make sense to me. So
Right,
it
right.
was
Okay. So I'm gonna go a little deeper on this intuition and gut thing because I'm told, like you and I, sister, you don't even know. Like everybody knows, like, man, you're crazy. Like, yeah, I know. But it's because I'm compelled. There's
yeah.
something, I call it the whispers, but there's something that just makes it super damn clear that this is what I need to do.
Hmm.
No evidence, no nothing. And so most people think, like I said, I'm nuts. But in terms of your situation, you clearly you have embraced your intuition and your gut. How did you, or where does that come from? Where does your confidence in doing that? Were you all, maybe a different way to think about it is, were you always so confident about what you felt and thought or sensed in the world? Or did that develop over time?
I feel like it definitely developed over time. I have been always really confident in who I am as a person in general, like in my thoughts. As a child, always like not the type of be like, let me follow this trend or I want to be part of this group or whatever. It was like I just am who I am. But I think that there's been a lot of personal development work that I've done as well.
Okay.
A lot of coaching and a lot of just exploration, let's call it, like really looking for connection. And what I have learned is that I can't unlisten to it, number one. But the more that I listen to those, how you call them, whispers, it's like I'm just being led. And if I ignore it, things become harder. And I'll give you one example. This happened to me last week. This never happens to me, mind you. I was on a call with somebody and she was like a potential client and not quite in the place where she could invest. And my gut, Jesse, was like, you need to give this person your program. Like, never happens. Maybe once a year
Right,
or
right.
once every 2 years. And I was like, you know what? I need to enroll you into the program. I can't even explain it. I could feel it in my throat. It was like,
Yeah.
you need to do this. And so I have to
Wow.
trust that. I can't move away from it. I can't even explain it, but it's something that I've definitely developed and I'm very in tune with, and I follow it. I always follow it, even if it doesn't make sense in the moment. I think that for me, just having so much connection with God, spirituality, that is just makes it stronger. And I pray for it too. It's like, just do
Yeah.
the work and tell me what to do, and I will do it. Like, whatever you tell me to do, I will freaking do it. I will follow
Yes.
your lead. So I try to just build on that, like build on that evidence of that, of like, whenever I
Yeah.
do this, look at then what happens and how much abundance shows up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And so thank you, because now I'm not the only one.
Oh.
But what I think you said that is key, that I want people to hear, like listeners out there, all of us have been in a space where we put in a ton of time and a ton of effort and a ton of energy, and we're fighting, running uphill all the time. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like you said, all I have to do is allow myself to be led, and it just happens. It's frictionless. It may not make sense in the moment, but on the long term, it's amazing. Like it's clear, it's easy, but we have to create the conditions for us to receive.
Exactly.
Part of that is like taking care of yourself and maintaining your connections with your people, your spirituality, and all of the things. And so I guess the main point is, folks out there, if you're experiencing a lot of friction, maybe you're not listening to the whispers enough, or that guiding light, or whatever you need to call it. I call it the whispers. It just makes more sense for me. Okay. So you listened to, you followed your intuition and your gut. You made the change. No more Ursula, puro Ariel. That's all we're going to be talking about now. What was the impact in terms of your clientele and operating your business? What was that
It was
shift for
really
you?
powerful. It was really
Yeah.
powerful in many different ways. So, the first thing is that I would get messages from people telling me, like, for example, I wrote a post about how my audience was filled with action takers, how my ideal clients were action takers who are not afraid to do the work. And immediately I got a DM from somebody like, that is me. 100%. Like, you're speaking to me. That is exactly how I am, and she literally enrolled that same week. So I had people who were showing up from just different level of people that were much more ready. I felt like I was attracting more experts. It wasn't so much about how much knowledge they had, but it was about the drive within them and like, I'm ready. It was a mindset thing. So that started happening a lot, like the level of people that we were attracting, the amount of people that would come in and pay in full versus doing payment plans, and
Yeah.
like little things like that. But then that also meant for me, and this was the pain in the butt part though, that it was like, okay, if I'm attracting a different caliber of person who has these different expectations, less hand holding, much more resourceful, much more action takers, I need to make sure that my program is really tailored for those people, which meant that
Ah.
then I had to re-record everything.
Oh.
Everything. I had all these videos, I had all these things, and I had all these processes. I had to redo the everything, because now it's like, okay, if I'm talking to an action taker, I can't give them 20 videos. Sure, they're going to watch them, but I need to make sure that it's much more actionable. And if
Yes.
I'm talking to people that are much smarter, I can't come in here and talk about like, let's do an ideal client avatar exercise. I'm assuming that you already know how to do that, that you've already
Okay.
done that before, because this is what I do is not beginner messaging stuff. It's much more. I have a client
Ooh.
that says like, I feel like I just got a master's degree in messaging. It was like super advanced. So all of the stuff that felt too beginner, I just moved it into like a course, like a self-study course that I have for people that like,
Okay.
I want to find uncover the foundations of messaging, right? I really needed to make sure that all of it sounded like I've never heard of anybody talk about this before. So even my
Mhm.
concept of who my audience is changed from, okay, I'm speaking to I'm not doing the Ursula. I used to say I'm speaking to the ready to invest clients. And now I say I'm
Yeah.
talking to power buyers. That's who my audience is.
Yes.
And so everything is structured around how do we speak to power buyers? And so I had to look at everything and look at my funnels and my content and make sure that all of it was like matching, from the words in my ad copy to the landing page to the webinar to the email to the text message, to everything needed to be really aligned. It was
It's
a
a
lot
lot
of
of
work.
work.
It was a lot of work. Yeah, I mean, it took, and it still happens to this day.
Right, right, right.
It continues to evolve, but it was really worth it, because now it's like the people, and obviously we still attract people who won't buy, right? I mean, I don't have
Yeah,
100% conversion rate. That would be insane.
that'd be nice.
It would be nice, but it would be insane. But the great majority of people who I attract are like, I'm ready. And when they enroll, they get results, they take action. Their business is like, oh, I've created this concept, this thing that is my thing. And people pay attention. And so it's like, it changes their businesses too.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I love. Thank you for like sharing that insight. What I want to make sure people don't miss is you got clarity and shifted, and it's helped you with your clientele. You're helping them do amazing things. But there was work all the way through from when you first started
Yeah. There's
in
still work.
2015. The work never stops, people. That's what I'm trying to tell
Yeah.
you. The work never stops because clearly you've invested in yourself. You sought out, you got coaches, you got, I'm sure you probably signed up for different seminars and different things. Some was really valuable, some was not. What kind of advice or pointers, except for, of course, sign up with Fabi, what pointers would you give folks in terms of like they're in the market and they're looking to maybe introductory? What should they watch out for? I'll give some little more context. I've signed up for a couple in the past for a couple calls, coaching calls or whatever, and it was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, it was another human being, but they read their script and that was the end of the call. And I'm like, bro, you could have sent me an email with the video link for that. Like, that was just not okay. Using that as the low mark, the low water mark, what are some things that folks need to kind of be thinking about or watch out for when they're seeking to make those early investments in
Yeah.
themselves?
I feel like there's a few things that we can unpack. Oftentimes we get sucked into the picture that people paint for us, and we don't really think about in terms of investing. We'll talk about the coaching call, but we'll also talk about investing. And so we're like,
Okay.
ooh, this person says that I'm going to get 10 new clients this month or this week. Ooh, this is exciting. Let me sign. That's exactly what I want. But you don't really stop to think about, does the business model make sense for me? Do I actually see myself following that business model? And so I have invested in things because of that in the past. And then I'm like, do I actually want to be DMing people all day? Does that system really resonate with me? I don't think so. And it's really discerning into, okay, what am I actually buying into? Do I really want this business model for myself? And then in terms of like that sales process, I do think that it's really important for you to build connection. So for me, for example, the way that we structure our sales process is before we do a sales call, I do a 15-minute call that I like to call brand message assessment. I also call it brand audit. And so what I do in
Okay.
that call is that I will look at people's messaging and I will literally rewrite it for them on the call. And I'll tell you, okay, here's what I would do if I were you. Here's how I would communicate. And I walk them through like, here are the gaps. These are the things that you're missing, what you're doing wrong. And so at the end of that call, if that person's a good fit and they're interested, that's when I invite them on a sales call. But it's a super precise approach. Obviously, there's a lot of strategy behind what I'm doing, but also in part for me is to avoid what you were talking about before. I value connection. And what I realize as well is that power buyers value connection too. So people that are like, oh, I want to sign a C-suite person, like a CEO of a company as a client, or I want to sign an executive leader, or I want to sign a whatever. These are people that are not stupid. They're not going to fall for transaction based marketing where it's like your number, like your cattle, right? What I find is
Yes.
that the more that you give them touch points where you get to build relationships with the person, the more likely that they are to buy. So in my case, that's why I do the 15-minute call. In part, there's lots of other reasons why. There's a lot of strategy behind that. I'm also doing it to show people like what the problem is. I'll explain that afterwards. But then also from there, when they move into the sales call, which isn't with me, I've already built such a powerful connection. It's easier for them to buy. The other so looking at like when you're going through that process of I'm thinking and investing, does this person actually care about me is an important question to answer, right? Or am I
Mm,
just a number for them? Am I gonna be treated like, yeah, I don't know, like they just want me to buy and they're pressuring me to buy. And they're not
yeah.
giving me information. They're not really telling me much. They're just giving me claims and promises. Mega red flag. The
Yes.
other thing for me is one of the core things that I tell people through the work that I do is that most people have a messaging problem, not a marketing problem. Most people think that it's marketing. So they're like, let me get more leads, or let me get more visibility, or let me start running ads, or let me do LinkedIn or TikTok or YouTube or whatever, hire appointment setters or whatever. But that's not the problem. The problem is that your message is going to speak to the wrong people. So if you're just
Mm,
focusing on marketing, you're going to keep on attracting the wrong people. No matter what strategy you're just amplifying a broken message. And so if we're
yes.
thinking about investing, I would say that if you're in a place where you don't have a solid message, investing in marketing is a waste. It's not that it's a waste of money, but you're going to leak so much money. It's going to be really expensive for you to scale. So I will
Mm,
always recommend that you invest in messaging, not first, but like whether you're beginning in your business or whether you're like have $1 million company, I don't know, whatever it is, it's you really need to take a close look at your message to make sure that when
yeah.
you put gasoline into it and invest in marketing, it's spent on the right people. Like you're bringing the right people in. And so your conversion rates are higher too. So,
Oh
long
my
answer.
God. I love it. The phrase you said is you're just amplifying a broken message.
Yeah.
That is powerful because how many of us do that? Some of the work I do is coaching continuous improvement and deployment of change within organizations. And I'm
Mhm.
just telling you right now, I'm going to steal
Go
that
for it.
because a lot of times when I'm talking with the decision makers or the influencers within the organization, I'm like, hey, I know we're going to do this, but let's get clear. Like, let's have what's the message? What's the story we're going to tell? We're like, we want to get better. I'm like, no, 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 no. Be careful because if you start that, you're going to be sending a bad message. The way you said it was amplifying a broken message. It's
Exactly.
not because we suck, it's because we want to dominate the market. Those are same maybe behaviors, but two totally different messages.
Exactly.
So thank you for that. Now, you touched on transactional and relational. What you described to me, the one-on-one 15-minute conversation where you kind of give the assessment and say, this is broken, fix this, think about that. I bet you get people saying, like, why do you give away so much for free? But you also pointed out, like, the power buyers, they want contact
Yeah.
time. They want actionable insight. And so in this transactional relational buckets, have you always been a relational person?
Yeah, but I've also developed it more. In the beginning, a little bit, but then as I went through the process more and more, I was like, I need to build more touch points with people. And so for me, I was taught don't give your content away because people are going to run with it. And I came up with an analogy last year that I like. And it's you can go and watch Taylor Swift's videos for free on YouTube, listen to her on Spotify for free. And yet, look at what that world tour did, which was insanity, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
never going to be the same consuming free content than paid content. The 15-minute calls that I have are extremely valuable, but they're
Yeah.
15 minutes long. Your
Yeah.
problem is not going to be solved in 15 minutes. Even if I
No.
give you, which I give people copy for free, is
Yes.
not going to be solved. And so the people that think that it will, please take it and use it. I hope it helps
Yeah, yeah,
you,
go.
right? I hope it
Mhm.
helps you because if you think that this is enough, okay, then you definitely need it, right?
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
people that are smarter, they're like, okay, help me do that. I want to learn how to do that. How do I implement that? What does that look like?
Yeah.
It for me, it's like a big mindset shift that has to change versus just changing your copy. The work that I do isn't about just updating your website. It's about fundamentally changing how you view your audience and how you view your value and what you're selling. And so if you don't know how to do that, I could give you your whole website copy if you want. You're still
Right.
not going to make a difference, because when you go to a podcast interview or when you're creating a video, you have no clue what to do. And so for
Yeah.
me, it's like a great way of delivering value. And people feel like at the end of that call, like, wow, I have a whole page of like testimonials that people have sent me about that call. And they feel like, wow, this is amazing. But again, like, I know, it's not enough. I mean, it's a great start, but it's not going to fix the problem for you. So I'm all
Oh,
about, like, let's just give value. I would rather because here's one thing that I want to say. One thing that I realize is that money at the end of the day is an exchange of value. And so the more value that I give, the more value that I get. And so I would rather just give value for free, because I know, coming back to that spiritual part, I live in an abundance world and I believe in
hmm.
that. And so why am I holding back from sharing the best? Now, obviously, there are ways of doing that strategically so that you don't end up attracting people that are like, great, thank you, bye, which you don't want to do. And I can even tell you the exact number. It's January 14th. So the month is just getting started. And this month, I want to tell you the exact number so you know. I'll
Ooh.
open it up. This month, even though I'm giving away content for free and that call, I've had, where is it? 80% of the people book sales calls regardless. So it's like,
Whew.
I'm giving you free content. I'm telling you at the end of the call, this is a sales call that you're going to have. They're going to walk you through my process. They're going to walk you through the investment. There is an investment involved. Do you want to do a
Yep.
sales call? 80% of the people are like, 100%. I want to do that call. Like,
Wow.
what's the next step? How do I enroll? I mean, give away value for
Yeah.
free.
80% is phenomenal. That's an outstanding number. So, congratulations. And again, folks, if you didn't catch it, if you didn't hear, it was a result of providing and delivering value for free. And I'm going to say it a different way. It was a result of investing the time to connect as a human with another human to serve somebody else.
Mhm.
And then the 80% happened. Like,
Yeah. I love how you said that, because that's the problem. Problem is that we all want to automate everything, whether it's through bots or AI or people in the Philippines that are sending 1,000 DMs per day or whatever. We all want to automate everything, but power buyers are not. I mean, you can automate pieces of the process, of course. Right? Like, you can, like, for example, what happens is that after somebody does the 15-minute call with me, they get a series of text messages from me and a series of emails from me that are nurturing them even more, but they had the call with me already. And so,
right.
and then they have the call with my team as well. And there's a lot of pieces in there that are really built purposefully, but you can't automate actual connection and real relationships. You can't.
I'm laughing because, since Chat GPT and all these other things have become more and more popular or more used, I see people using it to fill this connection gap. And it's like, no, 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 flip it.
Yeah.
Use it to automate all of the stuff that keeps you from connecting so that you can connect more.
Right. I mean, and you can
Right.
tell. You can tell when posts are written by AI, when
Yes.
comments are written by AI. It's like, okay, dude, you're wasting your time.
Right.
This is not going to make a difference.
Right, right. Oh my God. It's so, so awesome. Okay. So you transitioned the angle of mastery, had to redesign your whole business. You started attracting power buyers. You're now serving people and helping them attract power buyers.
Hmm.
What are some, because everybody thinks they want a power buyer
Hmm.
until they get a power buyer. What are some of the things that people that want to have that power buyer as their client that they need to have in order? Otherwise, it ain't going to happen for long term.
Yeah, there's one more piece of the equation. I'll tell you what it is after I answer your question. So basically, it's really recognizing within your content, whether that is your program or how your framework, your methods, whatever, it's looking at, well, does everything make sense for this audience? Or do I have to change something? Or is there something here that it needs to shift within what I'm doing to make sure that it's serving them? The process has to be really clean, meaning that message has to be congruent everywhere. Otherwise, you can lose people in the process. But it's more about mindset. It's also about like really believing that you can serve them. One thing that I often tell my clients, and it's a phrase that I often use, it's this idea that your capacity to make sales comes down to your capacity to receive clients. What that means is that oftentimes we're like, I want more clients and I want to make more money and but you don't have either the systems in place, or you don't have, bringing in more clients would be a real nightmare for you. And so for me, for example, I value my time a lot. And so I have 3 kids and I work from 11 to 3. That's it. Monday through Thursday. On Fridays, I schedule out emails, but I don't have any meetings or anything else. There are days when I go a little bit over 3.
Sure.
But for the most part, I work from 11 to 3. At 3 o'clock, I go out, I pick up my kids from school, and I spend the afternoon with them doing homework and whatever. And that's it. Like that's something I really value. If I'm in a place where I say, okay, I want to grow my business, I want to bring in more clients, I need to make sure that my program or the container can fit more people without meaning that now I'm working until 10 p.m. or I
Yes.
work earlier, because those times are like that for a reason. Like I go to the gym in the
Yeah.
morning. It's something that I value. I have like my morning routine. It's something that I value. And so that's why I start work at 11. And
Yeah.
so having the space built within your business, the support that you need, if that's what matters or whatever, to make sure that you can receive more is what matters most. So that's kind of what I would say.
Yeah. I love like this, the influx of work or backlog revenue, whatever language you like to use, that you think you want. As soon as you get it, it's going to surface the problems in your system.
Mhm.
And that's not a bad thing. But like when you're working with power buyers, you need to fix it
Yeah,
fast.
yeah,
So be
yeah.
ready to fix it.
But it's a good challenge too, because it's like then you have to be like, I had a client that I work with at the end of last year, for example, who was like a badass. Like I was like,
Yeah.
oh my, how did I even attract this person? He spoke at the World Economic Forum
Oh,
or World Business Forum, I think it's called, in Spain, and had multiple PhDs. And she was like, I need your help. And I'm like, what? Me? Okay. But then what happens is that when I serve clients that are like that have a lot of knowledge, a
yeah.
lot of understanding of a lot of different things, what that does for me is that it pushes me to be like, okay, let me look at my program. How do I make sure that this is going to serve that person? Or for her, in her case, she was a one on one client. So I write her messaging for her and all these different things. I need to make sure that this blows her away, that she's like, wow, right? So I
Yeah.
just work that much harder. But in that process, I create new frameworks and ideas and stuff like that too, which is awesome too. So
Amazing. So there's the added benefit. You attract the power buyers, and as a result of supporting them and serving them, you got to get better. So their expectations and their performance drives you to get better. And it's this like virtuous cycle of
exactly.
improvement and service. Okay. What pieces of the equation have we missed?
Okay, so the first part for me was speaking to the power buyers. That's the first thing that changed. And so
Okay.
once I was like, wait a minute, I can't do the Ursula anymore. I need to speak to the power buyers. And I changed that. The next piece was, okay, now that I'm speaking more to these people, how do I really catch their attention even more? And that's when the angle of mastery concept was developed. But then the third part, and this third part is the thing that I came up with last year, is something that I like to call the need to have formula, which is turning
Ooh,
what you do into a need to have. Because it's like, I can sell you into this concept, but how do I make sure that it feels like a need to have versus a nice to have? And what
okay.
I find is that most people, the way that they communicate what they do sounds like a nice to have. It would be nice for me to invest in leadership, in whatever, coaching, spiritual coaching, relationship, a consultant would be nice. Do I need to spend this money? Well, I don't
Right.
know, right? And so it's how do you turn what you do into a need to have? One of the things that I tell people is that for a certain audience, a $50,000 Hermes bag is a need to have, right?
Sure.
All communication. Everything becomes a need to have if you know how to communicate it and articulate it effectively. So for
Yeah.
me, that next part of that equation was okay, we know we're speaking to power buyers. We have this angle of mastery that we're selling, but how do we make sure that what I do really feels like I need that? Not from a place of neediness, because that's Ursula's stuff, right?
Sure.
But from a place of like, no, I need to have that. Like that's what I'm looking
Yes.
for. And so that was the next part of that equation for me. That was what I spent a lot of last year developing, that framework around that. And I called it the need to have formula. It's like the whole system for turning what you do into a real need to have in terms of your communication, but then also looking at the program as well and making sure that
Yeah.
what you're selling is like kind of coming back to what we were saying before, truly serving that audience and removing the excess so that it feels genuinely like I need that. So that was the last part of the
Yes.
equation.
I think that's just like the uppercut, right? Like that's the knockout punch there. How much do your clients or people in general struggle from a mindset perspective in messaging their services as a need to have? Do you find that to be like a common sticking point with your clients?
Sometimes I think that what happens is that when you go through the process, that process overcomes that objection because when you're
Ah,
speaking to the power buyer versus the Ursula people, then you understand that your work is a need to have for them. And so therefore it becomes really easy to show them, no, it is. Obviously, I think that it comes up more when people are newer, like if you're
yeah,
too new, you're gonna feel like what? But still, even in that case, it's always a need to have when you're selling it to the right people. It's not a need to have for you to sell, kind of coming back to what we were talking about before, something to somebody that is like, I need to sell my car to buy this, unless you're
right,
selling them a new car.
right, right.
If you're speaking to the people that are broke, then it's very difficult for it to feel like a need to have. That's when the mindset issues come up. But when you find, okay, within my ideal client, who are the people who really need this, who see this as a need, that's something that is
Yeah,
really important for them right now, who financially can afford it, who have the mindset, who are going to take action, who are those people? And so it doesn't, there's not as much of an issue mindset wise, unless you're like too new, is what I would say.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And I could see that. The key point, folks, if you didn't catch it, is going through the process that you teach, your system, the service that you provide helps people get there. So if you're like me in that you're really good at advocating for the people you know and telling everybody how amazing they are, and you stink at helping people know how amazing you are, this system or this process helps you overcome that, whatever, we'll just call it friction, whatever that
Exactly.
friction is, which is powerful because it's an uncomfortable thing. A lot of us have hangovers from the way we were brought up, the way we were raised, and all these funky things. But if the process fixed that, double awesomeness. Okay, so I got one last question for you. But before I ask that question, if there's a power buyer out now, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way for the power buyers to get a hold of you? And for the curious, the interested people,
Yeah.
do you have two ways that they can
Yeah.
connect with you?
So two things that we can do. The first one is the brand message assessment that I mentioned. And so you go to brandmessagesession.com to be able to book that. It isn't a sales call. It's a 15-minute super value-based call. I will take a look at your messaging myself. So it's not even with somebody else, it's with me. And because people sometimes are like, wait, it's you? Yeah, it's me. um, and I will write the messaging for you. So brandmessagesession.com. And then if you want to go deeper into the concepts that we talked about today, power buyers, angle of mastery, the need to have formula, what that process looks like more, I have a training at readytoinvestclients.com. I need to update that to say powerbuyers.com. But right now it's
Thanks. Yeah.
readytoinvestclients.com. Readytoinvestclients.com. And that's where you're going to find that training where I go a little bit deeper into explaining these concepts and how they show up in your business. And so that's another way to go.
Awesome. And you can follow you on LinkedIn and
Everywhere. Yeah.
YouTube. I found you on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Beautiful, great messages. Love the video. And I just discovered that you had a YouTube channel. So, of course, I got to
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
consume
Fabi
some of that.
Paolini. You're going to have to look at the description and the episode to learn how to type that. But Fabi Paolini everywhere, basically.
Yes. And we'll make sure, folks, the links are going to be down in the description and all the wonderfulness. You ready for the last softball question?
Okay, let's see.
Now, you clearly have an understanding of abundance and you follow your intuition and the whispers. You're about service, you're about connection, and you've been super gracious with your time and connecting with me on the LinkedIn and then talking now. So I'm like excited about what your answer is going to be. What is the promise you are intended to be?
Ooh. That's a great question. Very easy, quick question to answer. Well, I think that for me, what immediately comes up and what has come up in the past, not with a similar question because I haven't been asked that, but it's about helping people create the message that matters to them.
Mm.
And for me, that's what it's been about. It's about really discovering what truly matters to me. What do I want to know be known for? But it's beyond that. It's what matters, right? And so that's what I'm here to do. And that's what matters to me. It's helping people create the message that matters to them so that you're uplifting everybody else and you're uplifting yourself in that process, which I think ultimately is what we all want to do. It's like, let's raise the conversation everywhere internally first. Hello. But then externally as well, through the content that you're creating, through the work that you're putting out there, through the people that you're serving, through everything that you do and who you help and how you impact lives. And I think it comes down to that message that matters part.
Oh my God. I knew it. Like serving others, as one grows, we all
Yeah,
grow. Amazing. Did you have fun?
that was awesome. That was super fun. That was
Oh my
awesome,
goodness.
Jesse. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sticking it out all the way to the end. I know you got a whole lot of stuff going on. And in appreciation for the gift of time that you have given this episode, I want to offer you a free PDF of my book, Becoming the Promise You're Intended to Be. The link for that bad boy is down in the show notes. Hit it. You don't even have to give me your email address. There's a link in there. You just click that button and you can download the PDF. And if you share it with somebody that you know who might feel stuck or be caught up in self-destructive behaviors, that would be the ultimate. You sharing that increases the likelihood that it's going to help one more person. And if it does help one more person, then you're contributing to me becoming the promise I am intended to be. Be kind to yourself, be cool, and we'll talk at you next time.